Mike's on Mike, a conversation about politics, government, and Jacksonville, with 50-year opinion leaders Mike Hightower, Mike Tolbert, and award-winning broadcaster and longtime political observer, Mike Miller.
Welcome to another episode of Mike's on Mike. I'm Mike Miller, along with Mike Hightower here in studio. Mike Tolbert is back at his remote studio, and we're delighted to have you with us today. Thank you. By the way, as always, Mike's on Mike, sponsored by the Jacksonville History Center, and our thanks to Alan Bliss and the fine donors, as well as the staff who keep the lights on and the cameras rolling.
And the checks coming in.
That too. There seems to be a feeling in Jacksonville that the city's economy is really headed in the right direction. And that's because of population growth, job creation, expansions across several factors, and locations of new businesses. Our guest today to discuss what is going on in town from a business perspective is Karen Mathis, the highly respected editor of the Jacksonville Daily Record. Karen came to Jacksonville back in 1978, right after graduating grammar school at the University of Missouri, their School of Journalism. And that was to begin her career. And guess what? It began right here at the Times-Union as a business reporter. She's been covering the ups and downs of Jacksonville's economy now for 45 years. We wanted to ask her about the current business climate in Duval and how it's changed over time. Is it okay to be bullish, for instance, on Jacksonville? What's going on? And what's coming next, including the just-announced Project Bluebird, which is an aviation manufacturing facility that's eyeing Cecil Airport. Karen, welcome to Mike's on Mike.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Tolbert, kick it off.
Karen, thanks for joining us. We really do appreciate it. You know, in some ways, people look at downtown and see that as a reflection or a barometer on the city's economic health. But Jacksonville's got 844 square miles, and businesses are popping up every place, just like Cecil Commerce Center that's booming. Construction seems to be everywhere, especially road construction if you're driving around at all. Is there a reason for us to be encouraged or optimistic about the future? And why and why not?
Well, Duval County is now up to 1 million people, and the metro area of 7 counties is up to 2 million people in population. Almost, we're skirting 2 million people. And whenever you have that many people, you know that there's a lot of business going on, both businesses coming in to serve those folks and also businesses that are employing those people. As you know, talent and labor availability is huge when it comes to development. And Jacksonville and the 7-county region are really providing that. So it is encouraging that we'll continue to see that. Plus, we're in Northeast Florida. As you know, Florida is a huge area for population growth and people moving to the south into Florida. Well, you're filling up from the bottom of Florida up, and now you're in Duval County. And that's where you have a lot of land availability already. And you also are going to have more. But when do we fill up? So it is encouraging. We have a lot of business, and we're going to have a lot more before the day's done.
Great. Karen, one, welcome and thank you for being here. You've made a career covering Jacksonville business, 1978, 79. I'm going to ask about the environment, but I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. You graduate from college, university, and they bring you in as an outsider right to the Times-Union to be the business editor. What was that like? And as we kiddingly talked about before the show tonight, I was saying, what were they thinking, bringing in an outsider from another state to come in here and do the business? Help us understand what the Times-Union was thinking, but what was the business environment or the business reporting like 47 years ago?
Back then, a lot of major daily newspapers were first kind of getting into the business area in terms of having business sections and business staffs. They had business. They covered the stock market. You had what we called the agate section, which was all the stock market listings, but you didn't really have a section. And smaller papers, and at the time, the Times-Union was more in a mid-market area, were starting to staff up and create sections. They needed writers. They needed reporters. They hired me to write business features, and that's where I started.
So if I could restate that, so you were brought in when it was just developing, so you were on the ground floor.
I was pretty much on the ground floor. There was a good business staff there, but they were really trying to take it up another notch and add reporters.
George Wackendorf had been the business editor there since I guess the 60s, hadn't he, Karen? But I don't know how big a staff I don't remember.
I think
Okay.
George had
But-
George was the business editor, and he did a lot of the writing and reporting himself. He had a pretty good operation going.
Yeah. So being on the ground floor, starting out, 47 years, kind of give us a thumbnail of how, pick up on Mike Tolbert's thing, take us how the Jacksonville local business environment has changed when you came here out of the blue and now looking back 46 years.
That would take a long time to talk about this. No, back when I got here, we were a huge banking and finance and insurance center.
Yeah.
All the towers downtown, and some of them weren't even built yet when I got here. It was all headlined. It was all anchored by the banks and insurance companies. And that has really changed, as you know. A lot of those sold out or merged over the years. But when I got here, the Bank of America Tower did not exist. I watched that being built. I think I recall the old Bell South building, now it's the Everbank building, was under construction. So it was very interesting to watch the skyline take shape back then. Back then, downtown was where everything was. It was the heartbeat of business. The Jacksonville shipyards were just really in action down there. And so it was a different waterfront as well.
Do you remember, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot as well, but do you remember what the employee numbers were of people who were actually working downtown compared to where we are today?
I do not know what those numbers are. I don't remember how many people were working downtown then.
Would you guess that there are fewer today than there were when we had all those office towers and we were just developing that reputation as you?
It's a good question. I'd have to do some research on that. I'm not sure because there are a lot more buildings downtown and a lot more businesess downtown. And as you know, the definition of downtown has changed.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
used
the
to-
borders have just changed.
Yeah, it used to be the
CBD.
North
anymore.
Core, the CBD, and then it kind of incorporated a lot of the South Bank as well. So all those numbers are included in downtown now.
Back in the 70s, they used the number 65,000 more often than not.
For
The
downtown.
number of people.
And I think
Okay.
Yeah.
and I think what you're hearing now is more 55,000.
What made you come to Jacksonville? I mean, you're just out of Missouri, in college. Why did you decide to come here?
I interned in Beaumont, Texas, and between my internship in the summer and when I graduated, the editor in Beaumont and a lot of the people who worked there migrated to Jacksonville.
Oh,
And so that became where I landed, thinking, okay, I'll land here for a little while and see what happens. And as I say, here we are.
how'd that work out for you?
It worked out. It worked out. The joke back then was, and it wasn't really a joke, it was the saying that if you're in Jacksonville more than 5 years, you're in Jacksonville.
Yeah. Yes.
We're all here to prove that.
Exactly.
For everybody.
Exactly.
But another indicator of our growth and economic health is in the airport. JIA is now spending about $1/3 billion on a new concourse, adding 6 new gates. And recently it was announced that direct flights are now going to be running to Ohio, Austin, Texas, Iowa, Michigan, Toronto, and Wilmington, North Carolina. Explain the role of a thriving airport and how does that really complement a business environment? And is this a growth indicator?
It is a growth indicator. You know, an airport is what businesses look at, how they're going to get their executives here, how they're going to reach their businesses. And if you don't have direct flights where a CEO wants to go, a CEO is probably going to consider that as a factor when the decision is made to move to Jacksonville. You have to have the ease of transportation and also, of course, tourism. You know, you're bringing people in, you're bringing visitors in. So direct flights are very important. And the airport will add 6 gates, and I want to say they will be for the American Airlines. I think that's who's going to populate those gates. It also makes you wonder, will we get a direct flight to London or another European city? Because that's really what the desire is now, is to open up international travel as a direct flight. And so this will give you more of a chance, I believe, to do that.
You know, there's several things outside Jacksonville's control that can impact the economy. Things like inflation and interest rates, labor shortages, tariffs uncertainty, and even a pandemic. Investors and developers, we know, look at long term when they're making decisions about expansion and job growth. local optimism would like we have right now, would normally inspire investment. Do you sense these kind of people are eager, or are they cautious to invest in Jacksonville's future?
We're seeing a lot of investment continuing to come in to Jacksonville. And again, we can go back to where we are in the state, where the state is in the country, the fact that we are an area of interest to a lot of people for a lot of reasons. But then you see what the University of Florida is planning downtown. There are a lot of developers from outside the area who are buying properties or developing properties in Jacksonville. So we are seeing that interest and we are seeing that optimism. We still are. Now, maybe it does slow during the economy or when there's uncertainty, but we still are adding and not subtracting.
We see the news and see the ports on the West Coast. It seemed to be void almost of trucks and cargo. Do you see any impact yet on the Jacksport from the rumors of tariffs, the threats of tariffs? And how can tariffs interrupt our economy if they really come in and have an impact?
I think as far as the port, the last that I'm aware of at the port is a lot of the tariffs haven't really set in. I mean, I believe, and let me check my notes here, I think 10 to 15% of the cargo container volume coming into the port is from China. So that's a little less than there maybe at other ports. And our largest source of imports is Puerto Rico. And so unless there's a huge tariff impact there, I think that we're probably still okay at the port. But of course, there's going to have to be an impact. But I think the bigger impact is going to be pricing. You're looking at what department stores, you're looking at what discount stores, everything you buy everywhere. You have to take a look and see what the prices are going to be, and there are price adjustments expected.
I'm surprised that we would be talking about tariffs from Puerto Rico because Puerto Rico is a United States territory.
Right. And
it's not technically a state, but it's as close to a state as Washington, D.C. is.
Right, and unless there are big tariffs, which you haven't heard, that's where we have the largest trading in Jacksonville. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a comfort level.
And we also are a hub for auto imports.
Yes. And that's a question.
That's going to be
what's going to
happen.
Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of auto dealers have ordered far ahead in order to beat any sort of tariffs. But you never know day to day what the tariff situation is.
And we don't know what's going to happen after the 90-day pause.
Exactly.
Which is another big question.
Yeah, because you brought up the University of Florida and I wanted to talk to you about, but it kind of goes back to maybe where we are when you're talking about where Jacksonville is in the state compared to South Florida, where we are. Maybe this is like what they say on real estate, location, location, location. Maybe we are, even though sometimes we say the good news is we're 844 square miles. The bad news is we're 844. This may be one of those good reasons why we're where we are. Maybe.
Yes, we have we have a lot of stability in Jacksonville. We're not heavily in tourists. And you see what happens during a pandemic, especially showed you what happened with tourism. We also do have an agricultural component in Jacksonville, but we're not heavily agricultural. So we don't have to worry maybe about when there's something happening in the agricultural industry. We're still finance, we're still somewhat insurance, but professional services and medical. Yes, oh my goodness, talk about medical. That's a real change too from when after Mayo Clinic opened here in 1986, the focus on our medical industry, and you started hearing the term medical tourism. Really, we heard a lot. We have a lot of hospitals and a lot of good medical systems here, and they just continue to grow. I mean, Mayo Clinic is going to be doubling its acreage. It's like 300 acres. It's going to be doubling into 600 acres over the coming decades.
And look what Mike Mayo is doing with Baptist.
Yes.
They're just exploding.
Yes, at Baptist and Ascension St. Vincent's, UF Health. If it's a medical system, it's going to be doing well in Jacksonville.
Do you believe the investment of the UF grad school in Jacksonville, in my way, leading the witness, that we've become Florida's new business, medical, research, and tech? We could be the next business, technology, Disney World for Florida. I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I think that's how it's all being promoted and marketed, and I don't see any reason that you could disprove that. I mean, it does seem to be the logical location for it. The money will be allocated. We do know that. That's going to happen. We do have the space downtown. You do know that the I still call it the train station, but the Prime F. Osborne Convention Center, that's going to be transformed.
Are they turning that into like a Faneuil Hall?
Well, they're going to take down.
Which, by the way, for folks that don't know, in Boston, the Faneuil Hall is a great place filled with restaurants and all kinds of kiosks and things like that. It's a great marketplace. It really is.
Well, the convention center, the historic part of the convention center, which is the train station, would remain and probably repurposed and reused again for transportation. But the convention center side of it, the big old space, is what would come down, and that acreage be reused to build for the medical school, and for the UF Health Graduate Center. And then, of course, there's a building, the old Interline building, and that will be used initially for the Semiconductor Institute.
This $100 million that the city is thinking about, you think it's a good ROI?
At this point, from what we've seen, it would be. If it does what it says it's going to do.
Okay.
And if it creates the jobs and creates the graduates that it says it will do, then it's only going to cost more going on if we try to do that investment later. This may be the only time to do this and the only place to do this. If you talk to anybody at Jack's Chamber in the city when it comes to job creation and to recruitment, you need the people for those industries. And I know we lose a lot of graduates in Jacksonville. We lose a lot of people in Jacksonville, children, grandchildren, who say, got our degree, nothing to do, we're moving on. This is what will keep them here, is perhaps there will be more job opportunities, but also attracting companies and attracting jobs. If you can create the labor, Andre Wallace will tell you this all the time, if you create the labor, you will create the jobs.
The city's Office of Economic Development recently reported that Jacksonville has seen about a 15% increase in startups, due in large part because of the interest in AI. According to the Office of Economic Development, a main driver of that growth is the presence of JU and UNF and their AI programs that are producing skilled talent to support AI in Jacksonville. How big is AI now? I assume we're still in its infancy, but can you even look out 20 years from now and see how AI is going to impact the economy and the lives of the people of Jacksonville?
No, AI is already being used in almost every application there is, and it's only going to become more refined. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where AI has tried to write something or you've tried to read something and you read it and go, what is this? It makes no sense. This is incorrect. Well, that's only going to get easier and it's only going to get better. So I think that it's going to be endless in terms of how AI is used. There's a lot of fear in using AI now when it comes to things that really need to be correct and you need precision, but that will continue to be refined. And it's only going to be used more and more. And when you talk about JU, UNF, also FSCJ and Edward Waters University, all of those higher education institutions are using AI and training their graduates and their students in how to use AI. Interesting with AI now, though, is a lot of teachers, you talk to teachers in the classroom, and they're kind of reverting to some tests and things in the classroom with no devices, and you handwrite it. Otherwise, the fear is you're going to get what AI does. Now, that's not for everything, because AI is very useful, but just to kind of test the critical thinking and the originality.
I hate to say this, it reminds me of when I was in school, very young in school, and all of a sudden I remember the teacher saying, okay, put your calculators away. You're not allowed to bring them up in math school, math classes.
And it was to learn how to do it yourself.
Yeah, long form math. You got to learn that before you can go to the technology.
I want to go back because everybody understands I'm IT challenged. There's another way to say I'm IT stupid. But when you made the comment about sometimes when you ask AI and you go, where's that coming from? Since it's in its infancy and you've got what we're having here, then you could almost use AI as the starting point.
I'm going to take issue with the fact that we're saying that AI is in its infancy. I think what it is we are in our own infancy with AI. I was in a meeting this morning with a that included a young man who's a junior at Rice, who this weekend made a presentation on a city issue that had included a video that he said would have taken him at least 3 days to put together. And it took him less than 3 hours. It took him less than 3 hours to make the whole thing done, which included a PowerPoint presentation and a video. And it was unbelievable. It was absolutely unbelievable.
And as long as it's realistic and accurate.
Right.
And portrays things honestly.
That's the scary thing to me.
And that's, I think, where it's going to get hopefully better.
So to pick up on Mike's thought is, it's here. We're in the race to catch up with it.
We always write authentically. We do our own reporting and we do our own writing. We do not use AI in what we do in writing. Now, but every time you do research, there is an AI component in that, of course.
Yeah.
And so you have to be very careful, though, with your sourcing. And so a lot of times we still go to the source of the information that we need. We'll go to the website, we'll do our own research. Because I have found that if I ask AI a question about something I know about, I will get incorrect information. And it's frightening because I'm thinking there are people out there using that.
Mm-hmm. Karen, to change the subject just a little bit, you earlier mentioned years ago that banking and insurance and even the Navy were what dominated Jacksonville's economy. But now it seems like the economy is a lot more diverse, and I think you mentioned that as well. How important is that diversity? Don't we need to maintain that if we're going to keep a strong economy? And why is it so damn important?
Well, diversity is in business is, you have to stay relevant. You have to stay current. I mean, how many typewriter salespeople do you know? It's you have to, and to Mike, to your point, you have to have the diversity, but you have to keep current. What's new? What's different? Do you all remember when back office operations centers were the big thing to recruit to Jacksonville? Because it was a clean industry, and it was back when manufacturing was really starting to become much more automated. We were losing those jobs, so we needed more jobs. And so back office operations centers, big office parks, that's where the office parks came from, is from back office operations. And then that all started changing. And now we're seeing kind of a change in what those things are being sold and reused. As you know, Bank of America bought Merrill Lynch a long, long time ago. Merrill Lynch had its own campus, and the old Barnett, which Bank of America had its campus. And so now all of that's migrating to the Barnett campus, Bank of America campus on Southside Boulevard. And the Merrill Lynch campus now has been sold to the Intercontinental Exchange, the ICE, which has bought Black Knight. And so they're going to be moving, 1,000 or so jobs out there. So it's being repurposed, but that's how you evolve, and that's how you change, and that's how you keep diversity and relevance with what you've got.
As my colleagues know, one of my biggest concerns is the deportations issue of immigrants. You don't have to drive very far in this city to see a lot of people from foreign countries who are working, mainly doing a lot of physical labor work, especially the construction industry. I don't know if we have seen the deportations in our community yet, but I'm wondering, do you think we will? And if we do, how is that going to impact the employment issue that we have here by perhaps a number of undocumented immigrants who are now holding very good jobs and are contributing to the economy of this community, including all of the growth that we have, physical growth as well as infrastructure? How are we going to be able to maintain that type of growth if we do find ourselves the target of undocumented immigration deportations?
I think not just Jacksonville, but I think all of Florida is trying to figure that out, because if you look at, like I said, the agriculture industry,
right,
if you look at hospitality,
yep,
and you look at construction, those are three big pillars in the state of Florida for business and growth. And if you have deportations in those industries, that will affect the growth of those industries. So I don't know about you, but I haven't heard a lot about deportations yet in a lot of those industries. Will we hear a lot? Will we see a lot? Don't know, remains to be seen. But I do know that Florida and Jacksonville, by extension, would be greatly impacted if we lose a lot of the labor force.
Newspaper, believe it or not, is 113 years old.
Yes.
Doesn't look a day over 90.
I tell you.
Anyhow, most of the time it's been owned by the Bailey family. When Jim Bailey sold it, we were very, very concerned about what would happen to it. Tell us about it, and tell us about how it's doing and what the philosophy is of the Daily Record and how that's changed over the years.
When I started at the Daily Record about 15 years ago, was it 15? Yeah, 15 years ago, we were down at Forsyth and Bay and right in there. And we were right across from the old City Hall and the old courthouse. And that's why the Daily Record was built there at 10 North Noonan Street, because we were right there in the middle of the courthouse area. And so all that moved, as you know, up more to the North Core. And so that's where we have moved, to the North Core. And when Jim Bailey sold the paper, he also sold the building. And so that's why we then moved. But Matt and Lisa Walsh, very good friends of Jim and Donna Bailey, they bought the paper. They had known each other for many, many decades. And Matt, as you know, has papers all over, community papers and a business paper around the state. So it was a natural fit, and it's going great. In fact, Matt's in town today, and they're just wonderful, wonderful people. It's a wonderful company to work with. They carry on the family atmosphere that Jim and Donna had instituted, and it's the theme of the paper is always, what does the boss need to know? That's what our editorial stance is what does the boss need to know? What does the boss want to know? And that is who our market is. Our market are business readers, CEOs, anybody who runs or owns a business, and really anybody who has a decision-making capacity.
Right.
We want to tell people what's going on. And of course, we welcome any and all readers, because people love to know what's happening.
Right.
And by focusing on that, it means we're answering those questions, which by extension help everybody.
Yeah.
You know, we love it. We just have a great time. We have a great staff, a great team. We're downtown in the old it's 121 West Forsyth. And
Beautiful building.
It's a beautiful building. We love it. The law school's right above us. And so we've been there now, and we love the ownership, and we love everything about it.
Mike Binder was on the air with us a while ago, maybe now a year ago, and we were talking about downtown, and he said, we do have a thriving downtown. It's called the town center. And I have long felt that and been quiet about it myself. But is the town center the real downtown of Jacksonville?
It depends on how you define downtown.
There you go.
Define downtown as the center of government, then of course downtown is downtown. If you talk about the center of commerce, the town center has taken over that, where you're going to go out shopping or you're going to go pick up something, you're going to go down there. But another thing we didn't talk about was the whole Shad Khan, shipyards, development. Oh my gosh, it's just been an amazing transformation down at that part.
Yeah. And they're already started on, I had to go to a meeting 3 weeks ago at the stadium, and it's now to get, they wouldn't even let me in the stadium. He had to meet at the cafeteria where the guys work out, because they're already starting. And then across there, the crane's on Four Seasons.
Yes.
I mean, that whole area.
The office building, the marina, all of that. Yeah.
I mean, next year, it's going to be pretty extraordinary.
And they're moving fast on that. We see permits pulled all the time.
Yeah. That's going to do it, everybody. Thank you all so very much for joining us. And again, our thanks to the History Center for their sponsorship. And check us out, if you would, on our website, of course, on Facebook. We're also where you can catch us on just about every podcast platform that's available to you. Take care of yourselves. We'll all see you again next week.
Mike's on Mike with Mike Tolbert, Mike Hightower, and Mike Miller can be found on your favorite podcasting platform, Facebook, and YouTube. Visit the website at mikesonmike.com. Join us next time for more conversation with Mike's on Mike.